Proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor. I hereby declare the meeting of the Utilities and Roadings Committee open, and I wish to point out that Councillor Ward has indicated that she will not be able to act as chairperson today. So in terms of section 14.2 of the standing orders, we must elect a new chairperson for this meeting. And can I therefore have nominations, please?
Could I please nominate Councillor Friedman?
Do you have anybody seconding that? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You forgot to call for further nominations. Right, thank you for that, everyone. The meeting is open. Apologies. I have an apology from the Mayor. Are there any others? Councillor Megalings, is she about?
She's coming.
Right, well, I'll move the apology from the Mayor be received. Seconder, Councillor Williams. All in favour? Aye. Karen, thank you. Any conflicts of interest? There appear to be none. We'll move on to item 3, confirmation of minutes. That was a meeting held on the 19th of November, which I was not here for. Is there a mover in terms of the recommendation? Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Williams. Any discussion? I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Opposed? Carried. Are there any matters arising from the minutes? There appear to be none. We have a new member of the committee. Welcome, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Swap us out if you like.
Oh, you're like
I am on this committee and I'm sitting here.
Would you like confusion? I'll move. I'll quietly move if you like.
Wow.
Cause confusion.
If it won't take a minute.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to move things and slip them past me. We have no deputations or presentations. We'll now move on to the first report, 5.1. You presenting that, Joanne, or is Pete? Right, over to Joanne. That's diligent, page 2025.
Thank you. This report is for information. It's to provide an update to the committee on the delivery of the site assistance program. In the 2023-24 financial year, training was delivered to 752 year 5 primary school students around the district, year 6. We deliver this training at that age because it's the age where children are starting to get on their own onto the roads, so it's a good time to do that. The cost per student will be at $148.44. And other than that, I will take any questions.
Right, as councillors may be aware, funding was reduced this area, hence the update. So are there any questions? The report is really for information, yes,
Yeah.
because we have talked about this previously.
But there's no discussion.
Right, you'd like to move, Councillor Ward. Seconder, Councillor Mealings. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is, it's just really been an invaluable education program for the district, and we'll just see how things go in the next 6 months, but at least this allows things to happen through to June next year. So I think that's a good result. It keeps the people employed at the stadium, but they not only do the cycle skills education, it has far-reaching effects on road safety and all sorts of things as well. So it's very valuable. So we're supporting this report.
Councillor Newmans.
These changes have been well telegraphed, and this is really just making it official, and is for information. So it's an important service for our kids. This has enabled us to actually stretch out funding to continue to deliver the program in a more right-sized manner to match our finances, and happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just point out that it doesn't actually keep people employed. There's already been redundancies around the soil respect program, rightly so, with reduced amount of funding, and there are 2 new jobs that have been advertised to replace what is there. So those cycles are saying we have lost their jobs, just for clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton.
Sorry, I missed my question earlier while I was moving location, but perhaps Joanne, if you can answer this one to me. One, will there be a review of the sort of the operational delivery of the program, say in a year's ends, just to see whether in fact they are still largely delivering, the bulk of the program, even with the cutbacks? I mean, so do we come back and review this, sort of help guide us with that?
They won't be able to continue to deliver the current program with the funding cuts. They will definitely be scaling it back, excuse me, to potentially just in-school training for children, rather than at the moment the current program allows them to also be delivering on-road training.
Okay.
So they just won't be able to sustain that.
This comes to a second question, the on-road training. Has it in the past, has there been any training in the on-road training for motorised vehicles as well? Because I know in my rural context, we've got 14-year-old kids going 20k rides, I know who they are, and they're doing wheelies down the road at dangerous times and all sorts of things. So can there be some consideration of motorised bike riding skills for kids?
So not as part of this program, and part of the reason for that is this is delivered to year 6 students who are basically around that 10 years old. So it's very much targeted at that age group of children who are starting to get out onto the road and need to understand and learn how to work around traffic and how intersections work, those sort of things, rather than someone who is more, I guess, into those teenage years and using motorcycle. Gathering is often a farm bike or something that they're using on road.
So we don't have that program in place for motorised bikes. Okay, thank you.
There is a motorcycle program, so if you'd like to talk to Pete Daly at some stage, but it's mainly aimed at adults, I think. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll be supporting the recommendation. I think this program is an excellent one. There have been a number of cutbacks in the safety area by the government, but I think this is one that should continue. North Canterbury Sport and Recreation have restructured to be able to offer a scaled back program. I am hoping that the program will be able to continue after June next year, but that decision is yet to be made. So I'd encourage you to support the recommendation and acknowledge the value that this program has for young cyclists. Thank you. Any further speakers? Right, reply, I remember, Councillor.
And not necessarily, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right, I'll put the recommendation. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 5.2. Hopefully this one will go as quickly as the last. So far, Andy Kelly. You'd like to speak to your report?
Just briefly, this report for information is regarding herbicide usage for the last financial year, 23-24. It does build on previous reports. This is not the first time we've had a report on herbicide usage to the UNR committee. We have reports, particularly looking at glyphosate, type of herbicide, and alternative options, herbicide usage in general in 2022. We're looking at some volumes from some countries. So this is the first time we've had we propose to try and standardise this reporting and have it as an annual report coming each year. So for each financial year there will be a similar report to what we proposed here. It's fair to say that there has been community concern in previous years and it's been renewed this year, which is one of the drivers for this report. And also to try and look at how our practices in the council can be improved. We have minimised herbicide usage in previous years, looking at, for example, rural drainage, how we can carry out drain clearing with excavators rather than herbicide usage. And for example, with the green space contractors using mulching rather than herbicide usage to try and control weeds and garden beds. So we have, this has been a continual process, but this report adds to that. And what's also new in this report this time is that we raise the issue of it's not just the active ingredient, the herbicide in what is sprayed. Often there are additives in these formulations, and sometimes not, these are not declared because they're commercially sensitive. So just the active ingredient, the active herbicide needs to be declared. But there are some concerns about some of the surfactants that help the herbicide to spread. Whether there are more appropriate surfactants, and it's something which the Environmental Protection Agency has agreed to look into. So something that our council will continue to watch and just see if there are more appropriate formulations so you can still have the same herbicide but other additives that might be more appropriate for use. So happy to take questions.
Thank you, Sophie. I note in D there are various recommendations 1 to 8. Would you be happy to include an additional recommendation, which would be investigate alternative options for weed control? That's not referred to in the recommendations, 1 to 8.
So, as mentioned in 2019, there was a review of glyphosate and alternative options. So you're saying update to that report, which specifically looks at.
I think from memory I asked for that at the time. So anyhow, we'll get to that when we come to the recommendation itself. I've got 2 questions so far. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, looks like I was totally wrong with note E. I actually thought we did not spray over water here. It looks like we do. So what is very limited? 20 litres, 40 litres, 60 litres over water?
So for this 2023-24 financial year, I think the only contractors who stated they actually did spray over water was for the stockpile races. There wasn't any spraying over water. I think the other contractors, including rural drainage where it was dry drains. So they don't have the exact amount that they used over water, but they did state that they preferentially used mechanical means if possible, and they only used it where it was accessible areas. And then we have a consent which our council holds and they use as our contractor, which states very clearly how, if we are spraying over water, how that has to be done. So I don't know the exact amount of the proportion they used, what was on the bank and what was on water, but they did say very, very limited.
It's just that I actually thought we don't spray over water, and that's what all the drainage groups think and thought. It was only dry, what have you, so I was astounded to see that, and then I thought, wow, that's something here that
Something else.
it's been hidden from the public as far as knowledge goes, and we try to.
Is that a question?
Okay, to clarify as well, when we say spraying over water, what is required is you're spraying over emerging weeds, so you're not spraying over open water. So the idea is that the herbicide is applied to the cuirass or the watercress. That you should have decent cover, and that's what you're spraying. So that's But it is something that our consent our council has had in the consent for since 2012. But we do the notification, and newspaper is required, and it does state we can use it in quite a few, almost all of our drainage areas, but our council is only using it where needed on a very limited basis.
And in 4.3, you've got your list of sprays and whatever you use. Does the council use Gilmax gel? Gilmax gel?
Climax?
Guy or Gilmax gel? Gilmax.
I have heard of Climax, I think it's glyphosate.
Does the council use it? Do you know?
I had a confirmation from the Green Space Ranger that she used it this financial year, in November for a willow in Canberra. But it is glyphosate based, and that's this financial year, so this is only reporting for last financial year.
So should that be added into 4.3?
No, so this is reporting for the previous financial year, and there will be products that might have been used this financial year that are currently in that will be reported on next year. But it is a glyphosate product, so it's the same active ingredients as quite a few other products that have been reported here.
So that begs, is there going to be any extra different types of sprays we're going to be using that not been current last year?
So there could be some small changes. Often it's the brand name, it's the same active ingredient for different companies, because when you're ordering your usual product might be available. I don't expect a huge change in the active ingredients that they use and for what's reported here.
So are we actively looking at more friendlier sprays around? Are we doing that, or we're just going same old, same old? How active are we looking at?
So as I mentioned, my research into into products is raising more concerns about what is contained as the additives with some of the formulations rather than the active ingredients. There's been quite a lot of review, particularly of glyphosate, because of the interest in the product, but it has the Environmental Protection Agency has said on the basis of all the information they have, it is, if used on the label as correct, there is limited risk to humans and the environment, so they continue their approval and are not ignoring it. And I would actually say that if you look at triclopyr and some of the other ones that we have been using, they have more. I would actually say we should be reviewing, if we're looking at glyphosate, we should be looking at other herbicides potentially as being more of a risk for, particularly for spread to waterways. So glyphosate binds better to soil, whereas triclopyr tends not to bind to soil, so it has more of a risk of washing into waterways.
So
That's your grade of we're using it for your awesome broom.
So sorry, but was that a yes or no?
I think we should be looking at all herbicides and additives as well.
So we are, or think we should be?
We are, I think it's part of the process of this annually, we will be looking at whether there is any improvement in that.
And just further to that, so as part of our practice, we're always reviewing our use of herbicide and making sure that it is best practice. So this additional recommendation to be added under D, would be happy for that to be included, and also for it to say in addition to alternative options for weed control, we're also looking at the products that we're using and how they're being used as well to ensure that it aligns with best practice.
So if we're spraying on weed and the weed's sitting on water, is that class as spraying on water or just on weed?
It is classed as spraying the water, and that's why we have consent from Environment Canterbury, because there is a risk of discharge of contaminants.
Right, thank you. Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've just turned probably my questions upside down a little bit, because this is a report that's already gone. How do we get input into what's going forward? i.e., if this committee was of a mind to, say, take EF separately, spraying over water, because that seems to be, how would that affect? Because you can't do it retrospectively, you can't take it out. How do we get that going forward? If indeed that was a desire of the committee, I understood, because the way this is written, this is about moving forward, because it says here, notes that spraying water and its contracts is very limited. And then it says, if spraying is carried out, so it implies that this is for the future. But you're telling me this is for the past. So how do we get that, Joe?
So the committee is able to make a recommendation to not use the conceit that we have. That is a available option, but it is reporting on our current practices.
I think Councillor Atkinson in 4.29, which is in the recommendation, there are various practices that are proposed to improve current practices. So whilst I hear what you're saying, we're partly looking historically, but we're also mapping a route forward in terms of different practices.
So my question is still the same. How do you, if the committee was of a mind, and I'm not saying they are, if they were of a mind to remove E, you can't do that because it's already been, but you can't, because you'd be doing a direct negative. So how do you get it out of there, so to speak, if you want it?
Can I suggest the additional recommendation proposed under D, which was investigate alternative options for weed control, that includes an update of the 2019 report that comes back to this committee, so you then can make a decision regarding how herbicide is used in the district going forward.
Well, then, Mr. Chair, I'd like to request a further report then that comes back to UNR that actually tells us what the effect of removing glyphosate being sprayed over water would do, and the costs involved. And I mean the cost of manual removal and those sorts of things is what I'm thinking. If that's all right.
Right. Well, you're not a member of the committee, so you can't move an amendment.
I didn't move an amendment. I requested a report to come back to UNR.
Right. We'll see if that gets support. Sorry, we're not moving amendments or motions. My next speaker was actually Councillor Fulton.
Something to add.
Then we'll come back to Councillor Atkinson's point. The Councillor Mealings and Williams want to comment.
Yes, I have some questions and I'm on this committee.
Oh, you're not on here, right?
I am on.
Oh, you're on here.
I was the first chair.
I'm getting confused.
I'm like, hello.
Right. Councillor Fulton.
Okay. Reluctantly step in, me not being a committee member, but just to the earlier point, it might help clarify that as of about September the 4th, and being an ex-journalist, I take clippings of everything, a notice of drain spraying from the council, and I can perhaps circulate that, but I think the pertinent point here is that it says the active chemicals that may be used in the program are glyphosate for vegetation, trichlorophylline for gorse and broom. Majority of drains to be sprayed will be dry, and where watercresses to be sprayed, appropriate warning sign will be erected. And it also talks about the mechanical use, the use of mechanical methods to manage excess weed growth. So just wanted to put that out there, just a suggestion that we've been hiding anything, because that's in our own drainage and public notices. We do this all the time. So that clarifies things. And I suppose just an answer point, not a question, but the public notice does note that the Waimakariri District Council will be carrying out weed spraying on drains and water races commencing 16th September 2024 to the 30th of April 2025 inclusive. So that's something to bear in mind if we do anything in this current financial year, that we have publicly notified what we're going to be doing and the way that we'll be doing it. So just don't know whether that creates a risk of confusion.
Right, thank you. Councillor Mealings?
First of all, Sophie, I think this is a really good report and it's quite comprehensive and it's got a lot of information and I appreciate what you got in there as far as the quantum of specific herbicides which have been used in various departments and various places. I note that in E, it does say that, yes, we have a consent, but no dicot has been used by council, even though we have that consent, we haven't used it this year. So we aren't spraying, right? Okay. So just clarifying that, because also in 4.12 of this report, it also says spraying of emergent weeds within a waterway. Again, we're consented for it, but we have not sprayed any of that out. And that any spray that has been done has been on dry drains. I think that's really good information. Just that report that is in here, the herbicide management plan. So is that a 2019 plan?
The herbicide spray management plan is 2016 version of it. There was an original version from 2012 that was attached to the consent for.
Because I know there are several names in there that no longer work here.
Hence is a recommendation to update that herbicide spray management plan.
And with that, can we also add in for the update that it doesn't mention anything about the CNR side of things, it's just UNR drains and whatnot, whereas we, of course, do spray in our parks and reserves. So I may have missed it, but I haven't seen anything in here that talked about that. Also, your trial, a few years back, I remember you trialing natural stream management with shading, planting, river sediment traps, all of that. Is that trial still ongoing?
Sorry, which trial?
So a couple of years ago, I remember you bringing it to land and water, I think, and you were talking about that sort of natural stream management methods that were being trialed by planting on certain sides of the river and
I do remember that. So as in the drainage maintenance management plan, we outlined options such as providing shading. We did have some trials. The shading trial is still ongoing since the trees are still growing and not actually high enough to shade them yet. We did trial planting in the stream. Yeah, a few other trials, but nothing has been a success as yet. We hope to carry out more kind of the ideas that were raised in the drainage maintenance management plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mealings. I note on page 27 in diligent, the recommendation in D actually is very full and explicit. In the summary agenda, the recommendation actually summarises D and refers to a TRIM report. I quite like D being in full because it does list all the recommendations. And I'm wondering if the point raised by Councillor Atkinson could be addressed if the committee so agrees when we get to it. That a new recommendation 9 is added. Investigate alternative options for weed control, including spraying over water. Would that address your point, Councillor Atkinson?
Yeah, as long as it comes back.
Yes, yeah. These are recommendations for improving practices, so I think that would be appropriate. Councillor Williams, did you want to add something?
Well, I'm quite prepared to move with that amendment that you just stated.
Right. Well, are there any further?
Quick question.
Quick question, Councillor Fulton.
Just interested with the amendment in front of us, will we be considering the use of active ingredients or with formulations, because they're two very different things, the formulations and commercial products. Where active ingredient is the active ingredient, which for instance is the glyphosate. So I just we want to be clear on that, but we're making determinations about use of product types.
Well, we're not making a determination.
An investigation potentially. Yeah. Are we?
Okay. Well, I'm prepared to move the recommendation on page 27 of diligent with the addition to D, recommendation 9, investigate alternative options for weed control, including spraying over water. Full stop. And did you wish to second that, Councillor Williams? Right, thank you. And just speaking to the report, I think it is good that we haven't been hiding these matters. In fact, since I've been on the council, I've actually asked questions. And the first time I actually asked whether we were using glyphosate, I got an answer. The answer was no, which I thought was the answer. It turns out as years have gone by, we discover we are actually using a lot more chemicals, not just glyphosate. So perhaps my question at the time should have been more widely framed. So I think it's good because before we can manage something, we actually have to have the data. And we're now getting that information. And from what I can see, we are using a very small quantity of, shall we say, chemicals. Hopefully we're not using more than we need to use. And I certainly support the recommendations to improve our practices going forward. So I'm very much in favour of the recommendation. And thank you for bringing the report with those matters in it. Seconder, Councillor Williams.
Yes, I support that, and I've got no problem myself with a certain amount of spraying, but I definitely do not like the spraying over water. And when I was saying hiding, I wasn't actually meaning council was physically trying to hide it. I was meaning it was very hard to go through paperwork to see that we do spray it over waters. That was also that was never my intention, saying that trying to hide it on purpose, really silly like that. But with that recommendation 9, I think that would be very good to come to the council to get a thought on the whole situation, all about sprays. And I'd also like to see whether there's some more friendlier type sprays available around the world, and what the cost effective of those more environmentally friendly sprays are. There a huge cost extra or etc. So I think Sophie's the perfect person to look into that information for us on the environmental side of things. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson.
I think, Mr. Chair, look, I think the recommendation is a good one, and I think that's, we should always be looking to improve on what we're doing, no matter what it is. So I think that's really good. I just want to draw your attention to 4.5, 4.6, and it talks about what the EPA have done there. Well, they haven't done a study since 2012. They released the results of the 2012 result in 2016. It's now 8 years old. Just our own growth in population, particularly around waterways, is massive in that time. So what is the bulk of that if people are spraying? What does it do to our waterways? So I just raise that for what it's worth, and the demand of level of service that people are asking us to do, like keeping drains down and all of those sorts of things. They all add to it. So, even while we're trying to still cut back, the demands and the level of service is something that are probably making us move forward as well. So there's that balance here that's a real worry. I think you all know my views on spray, and I think that they're absolutely disgusting and they should go. Simple as that, and we should get back to manual ways of doing things, and that costs. I understand that, but that is my personal view. And I just want to remind you, it wasn't the EPA, but back in the 60s and 70s, they said that thalidomide probably won't hurt humans. And look what happened. And it says in here that the EPA concluded in 2016 was not likely to harm humans. It doesn't say it won't, doesn't say it will, all of those things. And many people have different views. But many times when it comes to chemicals, boy, have we been wrong around the world. And we need to make sure that we are doing everything possible to make sure that we cut that harm down or get rid of it altogether. and I'm absolutely in favour of that. But, as I say, the steps come as they come, and I'm happy with the recommendation that you've put forward, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mills?
Thank you. And again, so thank you for the support. There's a lot of detail in here and it's great. Particularly the recommendations and what we're voting on here, I just draw the attention to and my support of detailing the option on the website to join the nose rate register and extending the scope of that, and also creating that website page of frequently asked questions about herbicide, because this is a huge matter of public interest. There's always discussion about it, there's always questions and concern, and sunlight is the best disinfectant, so having that information freely and easily publicly available and letting people make the choice for themselves if they want chemicals sprayed on their properties is, I think, ultimately the best outcome. And obviously herbicides do have their uses, but I do appreciate that we are using them as sparingly as possible, and in cases where people so choose, not at all. But yeah, I definitely favor an update to our management plan and the communications around it. So.
Thank you. Just in exercising my right of reply, I point out that this relates to the council, not Joe Blogg or the private user, not to ECAN, not to golf courses, not to all sorts of other bodies. So we really need to adopt a best practice ourselves, and I think that's where we're heading with these recommendations. Councillor Williams and I actually looked at a stream out in Pegasus about a year ago where it was alleged there'd been spraying into water, and if there had, nobody came forward to acknowledge that, and I'm sure it wasn't the council, and in fact it wasn't established that there had in fact been spraying over water. So out in the community there is widespread concern. I accept that the use of these sprays should be minimised, if not done away with, and I'm not quite going that far, but I think this is a good step on our journey, and I think it's a very good report with very good recommendations. So I'd ask the committee to support that. Right, I'll now put the recommendation with the addition of recommendation 9 being added to D. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Right, thank you very much, Sophie. It's quite a topical issue at the moment, as I'm sure you're aware. Right, we'll move on to item 5.3. Jason. If you'd like to speak to your report, Jason, I'm just going to bring it up.
Good afternoon. Lorraine is going to be speaking to the report today.
Right, thank you. Would you like to introduce your associate, Jason?
Yes.
I'm not sure I've met her before.
Yeah, this is Lorraine Cardenas. She is the Three Waters Compliance Officer in the Stormwater and Waterways team.
Right, welcome. I'm not sure this may be your first meeting, is it?
This is my second meeting.
Your second meeting, right, I was away last month, so I may have missed you.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Lorena, and today I'm talking to you and presenting a report for two reports. This is for the Stormwater Network Discharge Consent that currently waimakariri District Council holds with Environment Canterbury, and this is for Rangiora urban areas only. So as a result of the conditions of this consent authorizes the council to discharge contaminants into water when it rains, and we've got conditions and limits to comply with. So as a result of the consent conditions, two reports are generated. Report number 1 is the annual report, which compiles most of the conditions from the consent and how we are compliant with them. And the second report is the Rangiora Stormwater Monitoring Program report. This summarizes all the findings and information from the monitoring that we carry out quarterly every year, every time that it rains, that we can go out sampling, and any sampling that we also do in dry weather. So in April, I believe this year, I presented a similar report to this committee from 2021-2023. So that was us catching up with our conditions of consent. And this year, I am speaking and presenting the 2023-2024 information. So the council is required to report back to the Environment Canterbury once a year on these conditions of consent. And this year, most conditions were assessed as compliant. However, there were some areas of non-compliance identified, and this was related to certain levels of contaminants. So the results from the wet weather sampling were show compliant results at 13 sites for total suspended solids, total ammoniacal nitrogen. During dry weather sampling, which involves sampling at 6 sites when it's not raining, compliant parameters in water quality were dissolved oxygen, temperature, pH, total ammoniacal nitrogen, and total suspended solids. There were also some exceedances during dry weather sampling in conductivity at 2 sites, dissolved inorganic nitrogen at 3 sites, dissolved reactive phosphorus at 2 sites, and E. coli at 3 sites. So that sampling is not a requirement of compliance, but we still carry it to inform what's happening outside of a rain event. And I'm going to move on to the exceedances regarding wet weather sampling. So when it rains this year, we encounter exceedances on dissolved copper in the North Brook at 4 sites, dissolved zinc in the North Drain 1 site, in the North Brook 4 sites, and in the Middle Brook 2 sites. Dissolved reactive phosphorus all around waterways except Khan River. This finding is aligned with last year's finding. E. coli in all around waterways except Khan River, same as last year. And I forgot to say this report is for information only. And the results from this monitoring program are also used by our team, Three Waters, to draw recommendations and prepare a program of works under the stormwater management plan, which is also required as part of this consent. So that stormwater management plan is currently being prepared, and it draws recommendations from that plan, draws from the results and findings of these reports. This year, also trend analysis was undertaken with results of the monitoring, and it was a bit more comprehensive than last year, and some increased and decreased trends were identified. So an increased trend was identified over time for dissolved zinc in the North Brook and Lily Brook Park side, in the Middle Brook on the western side of Bush Street, and in the North Drain. There was also another increased trend of copper in the Middle Brook, and positively, a decreased trend was also identified for dissolved zinc in the South Brook, which is the most downstream side, and a decreased trend in Pond C, which is actually a condition, something that we seek from our conditions of consent. So we seek the decreasing trends for those contaminants. As a result of this monitoring, there were recommendations issued from these reports, and summary of those recommendations is to investigate and address the non-compliances on dissolved zinc in the North Brook as the highest priority, followed by the Middle Brook and the North Drain, and also for dissolved copper in the Middle Brook. To assess the non-compliances fully, this is a combination of responsibilities and share responsibilities with Environment Canterbury, but also with industry. So those are being discussed with at different levels, and it is also recommended to trial localized street sweeping in some areas where no compliances are identified in waterways as a way to test if this is a good mitigation measure to reduce the contaminant load on the waterways before it rains and before all those contaminants that build up in the sums flush into the receiving environment. So this report will be submitted to Environment Canterbury and now to Ahuriri Runanga after the presentation at this committee. And now I'm ready to take any questions.
Right, thank you, Lorraine. The stormwater management plan that's being prepared, will that address the exceedances in how to mitigate zinc and some of these other contaminants?
Yeah, the stormwater management plan that we're preparing looks at three risks really: untreated areas, untreated catchments within the Rangiora district, as well as the water sampling results, and I'm blanking on the last one right now. So we'll look at those three. I'll get it for you in a sec. We're looking at those three categories, and then we prioritize those catchments. We have 9 million spread over roughly about 10 years, and so we will use that budget that's already been allocated to work on reducing some of these contaminants that we're seeing, especially zinc and the other ones mentioned by Lorraine.
Most of those coming from motor vehicles, or are there other sources?
So another recommendation is to start site-specific investigations to understand where the contaminants are coming from. Copper mostly comes from powder of copper brakes. And zinc usually comes as well from galvanized roofs that are being treated properly. So the places where we see the exceedances in resolved zinc, for example, those relate to the oldest areas of Rangiora Township, because that's how those houses were built at the time. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Right, I've got two questions. The first one from Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you for this. When we do sampling from some of our drains, how long does it take to get a result from the compliance, whether it's non-compliant or good?
A result from even or for us to know whether
For us, we know what the results are.
Yeah, so it takes about a week, sometimes maybe two, depending on the lab workload that we can have a look at it. Yeah.
So if we get a non-compliant one, how quickly do we follow up and do probably a couple more tests upstream from in the drain, so we can actually build a picture over the years of exactly where contaminants are coming from, whether it's from some industrial properties around the area. Do we do this?
That is the recommendation that's issued. I don't know if we have immediate capacity or budget to carry this as immediately as it sounds that you are asking, but it is definitely on the cards. It is definitely something that we are planning on to do. We did one site-specific investigation for E. coli last year in the Middlebrook. Last year, the Middlebrook showed that it had high levels of E. coli in dry water sampling. So we went out, we took some extra samples, and we sent that to the lab. And then we came back with non-conclusive results. So then it could have been a one-off thing, and the Middlebrook this year is compliant. So I'd say maybe we don't do them as often as we would like to, because of workloads, but it's definitely, we are aligned with that thinking.
So your experience would be if we don't actually find out where these contaminants are coming from, we would pointless testing. So we should be spending even more time if we find a non-compliant one get where the students coming from, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, so on the, there's quite a comprehensive discussion around this on the monitoring report, actually, for each contaminant. If you're on the monitoring report, each contaminant is looked at as a whole, like, I looked at it from an area point of view, and I tried to suggest and try to guess where it could be coming from. I look at the network, the smaller network, and where I was seeing those exceedances coming, and I suggested some comments and thoughts. So if you're interested, I can point you out to those sections in the monitoring program this afternoon.
And just further to Lorena's comments, as part of the investigations, the goal is to isolate where those contaminants are coming from. And so that is part of that capital budget. That investigation will involve that preliminary investigation work to isolate where those exceedances potentially could come from, and then follow up on those, as well as implement improvements either through devices or other treatment solutions.
Yeah, and try as best as possible to inform from a desktop investigation perspective, so that the team can just look at that and suggest further actions if required. So we'll take that on board definitely.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also thank you for asking my first question originally about the zinc and copper, because I had wondered that as well. So, being that the copper comes from brakes and zinc from roofs, apparently, does that explain why the CAM doesn't have the same results, or because it's set back from the roads a bit more, or is there some element of this management that sets it apart?
So the Khan River doesn't flow through the middle of the town. I think that's the main difference. The Khan River, yeah, it's got high ecological value, and it's a very healthy stream according to these results. And the main difference is that the other waterways are urban waterways. They are spring-fed waterways that originate further out the catchment. So some exceedances could be coming from out the catchment, from fertilizers maybe, we don't know. We are hoping to have some conversations with the Environment Country around the nitrogen and phosphorus related exceedances. But that's the main difference. The urban waterways flow through the middle of the town.
Thank you, because I found that quite fascinating, given that they're all within the same catchment. But, and my last question is simply, what is there a reason why we only have a report of this nature for Rangiora and not other areas or waterways? Why do we just have this for Rangiora?
So Rangiora stormwater discharge consent was approved in May 2021, and our similar global comprehensive stormwater network discharge consents were approved 1st of June. They got approved this year. So currently we hold similar consents for Kyle, Woodland and Oxford. So you can expect a report of this nature by the end of the financial year, well, after the financial year next year, because it will be 4 townships to manage, 4 consents to manage, and 4 reports to prepare, and directly look at from 4 townships.
So this is up here because the consent is up for renewal. So this regular report is here because we're looking at renewing that consent. Is that correct?
No, it's a result of the consent conditions. So condition 35 to discharge stormwater in Rangiora requires us to prepare this report and look at these things.
And that's an annual report, right?
Correct.
But and how long is the consent? How long do the consents last for? Did you say 3 years?
I had it open here. 2045 is the expiry date for Rangiora.
So the annual reports are a consent requirement, and there is one, and they are coming for the other streets, right? Okay.
So Rangiora commenced in 2021, and we're reporting annually since 2021, or first report being for 2 years, first annual report, actually covering 2 years. But the first year reports for the other new discharge committees will be released after the end of this financial year.
Thank you, because I hadn't recalled hearing one of these for a while, so I thought, well, why is this one standalone? So thank you, you answered my question.
Looks like we have to report annually to ACAC. Going forward.
That's correct, yeah, for our 4 townships.
Yeah. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Picking up on the point of the annual reporting, can you tell us, who's best placed to answer, we've had several years of, say, wet winters and not just winters either, and now we've had a notably dry period. Is there any way of sort of benchmarking the difference, and sort of correlating the two? You talked about runoff, surface runoff into drains during wet periods, now a very dry period. So do the two things correlate? I mean, we seem to have had 2 extremes. Environmental condition.
So is the questions around when?
Yeah. Can we see a correlation between those wet years, we had more runoff, more contaminants, when we get dry, how does it compare?
Yes, so we see increased trends. So those are significant trends of the contaminant increasing over time. So that data was compared to baseline sampling, which was undertaken in 2014 and through to 2017. So that data, we kept it before the consent got through. So we are comparing every year those results that we find from the monitoring program against baseline data and seeing what it does, if it goes up, if it goes down, if it's significant or not. So only the trends that I've spoken to were significant. The others didn't have enough data. Is that?
Okay. Yes, particularly I suppose I'm asking about the impact of rainfall as is it the lead factor or is it one of many?
Yes, so when it rains, it washes down anything that's exposed to rain. It rains and it gets collected into the sumps and stormwater system, and then it drains from there into the receiving environment. There are treatment stages that we currently have. So the more rainfall, the more contaminants you get. So that's why this year the trend analysis was more comprehensive, because it included correction for that rainfall effect. So the more it rains, the more contaminant you see. There's more runoff.
So you did correct for it. Okay, so yeah. Just so final quick another question was just about the council's own reticulation network and the pipes, point source, I think they call it, is it the jargon that goes into waterways? How many of those do we have in this area, and do we have any plans to minimise those over time? So that we're not actually just directly discharging ourselves or our own network.
So you have 13 discharge points into the receiving waterways within Ringdor.
And do we best to do knowledge is that being scaled back over time? It used to be around the country, it used to be pipes and waterways everywhere. Are we seeing fewer and fewer of those?
So I don't know how to answer this.
Yeah.
I can get back to you.
I can't make it.
Nelly to the rescue.
Yeah. I think the key thing with what Jason mentioned earlier about, if you look at Rangiora, we've got our modern areas that have stormwater management areas and treatment in place, but we do have some of our older parts of Rangiora that are untreated. So the key thing here is we actually need to look at where the discharge points are that are causing us issues with contaminants, whether it's copper or zinc or any of the other contaminants, and then look at how do we actually address that. And a term used in stormwater quite often is looking at the treatment train, both from prevention at source, so it could actually be working with industry groups regarding the use of copper in brake pads. It could be looking at how roofs are managed and maintained, or it could actually be looking at a end of pipe type treatment. So we actually accept we're going to get contaminants in the stormwater drain. We're going to treat it before it discharges into the stormwater system. So going back to your question about are we looking at rationalising the number of outlets that we have, when we are looking at putting in end-of-pipe treatment, we actually want to bring as much catchment area into that point and treat it as possible. So as part of that process, we may actually look at maybe combining 2 or 3 discharge points into one so we can have a centralised treatment system. But yeah, effectively it's going to take a bit of time to get to the point of working out, well, which are our problematic catchments and what is the most appropriate solution we should be implementing here, and should that actually be looking at rationalising the number of outlets that we have.
And so that might include your filtration, your membranes, all this sort of stuff to do capturing before it comes out the pipe and literally goes.
Yes, correct. So there are some quite the technology that's getting used in stormwater treatment these days is actually improving quite substantially. That's both using filtration type methods, whether it's actually they have kind of getting to beyond my expertise, but membrane type filters are used in stormwater treatment, media type where it's some kind of sand mixture that you're passing the water through, but also using natural measures, so using plants from a filtration perspective as well. So recently we've installed a bit of a trial outside the high school on the East Belt where we have some rain gardens that are treating stormwater and also helping with disposal. So yeah, there's a range of different measures we could look at for treatment.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, last question.
Just one question really. On G it says circulate this reports the Waimakariri Water Zone and Rangirangi community boards. I personally would like to see it circulate to all the community boards because the water from Rangirangi is each going to hit Kaipoi, water from Oxford is each going to hit Rangirangi, so I think it's a community, all the community boards, but I think it's probably going to cut the buttons to push that to the boards, so that would be appreciated.
Yeah, more than happy with that.
Right, no further questions. So would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Williams with G amended
to all boards.
To all boards, not just Rangirangi.
Yep.
Right. I'm happy to second that.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak?
I think it's all been looked after pretty good, and thank you for the report, and we'll watch it with interest. I think it is important to actually probably do a little bit more testing to find out where some of the contaminants are actually coming from. It's easy to say all the copper's coming from brake pads, but there could be copper fittings out there and taps and copper spouting on roofs and all that ground. So yeah, so thank you.
I'd just like to say that I think this report is encouraging and shows that we are looking forward to the future from an ecological point of view or environmental point of view. And I can still remember asbestos brake pads. We got rid of those and you end up with zinc and other metals. So there is a sort of flow-on effect. So we solve one problem and maybe create another. But I am intrigued, you mentioned, I think, Marina street sweeping, to see if that has an effect on reducing contaminants. So I'll be interested to know the answer to that in due course. And we look forward also to seeing these, what's the word? Stormwater management plans for the other areas or urban areas in the district. So I think we're making a step in the right direction to tidying up our waste. So thank you for the report. Any other speakers? Councillor Williams, would you like to reply?
No, thank you.
No. Right, there being no further discussion, I'll put the motion with that slight amendment to G, that it goes to all community boards. All in favour say aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Right, we'll now move on to portfolio updates. And I saw the short straw is coming out first. The roading department has been fairly busy as the weather has improved, so the construction season's in full swing, and you will have seen work carried out around the district. Over the next 2 weeks, some of these work sites are being tidied out and as much traffic management removed as possible prior to Christmas. And I could say, having just come back from Europe, I saw very little signs of traffic management over there and very few road cones. So I don't know if that was just coincidental because it was their winter time, so perhaps they're not doing as much work on the roads. The focus areas for staff are, as you'd expect, resealing, mowing, especially as we're heading into Christmas. The high winds we had the other night on, what was that, Monday night? No, Sunday night.
It was Sunday night.
Sunday night. Took down a number of trees and toppled a pivot irrigator, and one tree fell on the Christmas Road Bridge, which I thought was quite appropriate coming up to Christmas, not being overlooked. And urgent pavement repairs are being carried out in some areas prior to the Christmas break. Trem Road and Fernside Road pavement rehabilitation works have been completed, and work is planned to start in early January to carry out a pavement rehabilitation on Plasketts Road in the area around Egan's Road. And traffic management requirements are currently being worked through, and columns will be sent out. The Ellis Road seal extension work has been completed. The Riverside Road seal extension tender has been awarded, and works are planned to start mid-January, and an information notice is currently being prepared to go out to the residents. The Curbon renewal contract is also currently out for tender, closing on the 18th of December. The street light maintenance contract has been tendered, and tenders closed on the 27th of November. 2 tenders were received, and evaluation is currently underway. A new trunk main is being installed on East Belt, and a closure is currently in place between Coldstream Road and Wales Street. This closure will be moving south from the 10th of December, which has been agreed in conjunction with the school, as the school term will be complete by the 10th. So I think that's this week. So it looks as though high schools are shutting this week. Kiwi Rail and NZTA have some work planned around the Lineside Road rail crossing, and this will be carried out as night work early in January. A detour will be in place via Flaxton and Skewbridge Road and Ahoka Road. Over the last 2 weeks, an automated inspection of a number of the sealed network has been completed as part of a national testing regime, and that captures the roughness, which we talked about, I think, in the audit and risk report this morning, rutting, texture, cracking and geometry on the sealed road network. And you may have seen a vehicle with special testing equipment driving around, and that's what it's been doing. Arterial and collector roads are surveyed annually, and local roads are surveyed over a 2-year cycle. We have 3 events coming up in the next month or so. The Oxford Santa Parade on Sunday the 15th, Muscle Car Madness on the 25th and 26th of January, and the Coast to Coast race on the 7th and 8th of February. Funding. There are some further funding opportunities for low cost, low risk projects and setting of speed limits, which have been announced by NZTA, the low-cost, low-risk funding will be prioritised for projects which have resilience, economic growth and productivity, or reducing the whole-of-life cost benefits. The setting of speed limits funding relates to the requirement for setting variable speed limits around schools, and applications for both these funds close on the 25th of February. And I thought I'd just mention briefly that the new setting of speed management rule requires variable speed limits outside all schools. Regional speed management plans are no longer going to be mandatory. And this doesn't apply to us, and Pete Daly provided some of this information. We won't have to revisit some of our speed limit reductions, as some local authorities or road controlling authorities will need to do. So we don't have any specified roads in our district that require us to revisit. The variable speeds outside of schools, there are two categories of schools, urban and I'll call category 2 rural. The variable speed time is a maximum of 45 minutes at the start and the end of each school day. That's the maximum. I think practice was previously 30 minutes. There is a zone, and Pete Daly has been mapping all the schools in the district to see where that zone fits, and some go over intersections and around the corner from the main entrance to a school, and it became apparent from looking at his diagrams that one size does not fit all, and I guess we always know that. So it's not quite as simple as it seems, so he'll be coming back to this committee, I assume, when he's completed his investigations and how we deal with the variable speeds outside of schools. So yeah, each school will need to be dealt with individually to achieve the best results. So that's it from me. If there's any questions, Councillor Neelix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You didn't mention it in your rehabilitation discussion, but a few weeks ago, a local put up on one of the local pages that she'd been talking to someone from council, and that there were to be road rehabilitation works on Mill Road in January, February, which hasn't been mentioned, but is that happening? Because I think there's a community expectation, so I just want to.
Yes, it is planned. It wouldn't be until after we've done the Plaskets Road work. So in early January, we'll be working through the detailed design and the comms that needs to go out with that as well. But yes, Mill Road is very much on our radar.
It's all marked up and ready to go. But, so in the Plasket Road stuff is underway now?
No, it's actually working on Bramley's Road, or having working on Bramley's Road, doing an area in there which was very uneven, so they have been there at the moment. They will be starting in Plaskets early January. We're just looking with them to confirm the dates, either the 6th or the 13th. We would be expecting them to be there.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I see already we've got some things combed out because there's some
there's some down there. We've had a lot of issues, and I think again with the very wet ground we've had over the last 3 years, where it's really a lot of side failure issues where the pavement's heaving out the edge. So there will be potentially some work pre-Christmas to just address the worst of those as a temporary repair to get us through Christmas, and then we'll be there straight after.
Fantastic, good to know, because the 50 K zones around those spots are interesting. But yeah, thank you very much.
You're quite right about Mill Road, and I did read that somewhere since I've come back from Europe, but I'm not sure where I read it, whether it was in the last UNR minutes or where I saw it, but I did see it somewhere. So thanks for mentioning that. Anything else? Well, we'll move on now to drainage, stock water and three waters. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try not to go over my 2 minutes allocated.
Oh.
This
chairman might be a bit illegal.
I realise that. Last week, myself and Tim went to on a drainage group meeting to see the stage 1 and stage 2 amenable resurgent situations, and I think it was probably one of the best trips I've actually been on. There was quite a lot of debate and everything happened on there. I was a wee bit disappointed with it being pointed out that it's happening when we've actually only put out for consultation to possibly happen. The big debate probably was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe all of the unanimous of the Mandeville HOCA advisory group people reckon possibly stage 1 is not the right answer for that situation, and in actual fact we could spend a lot of money for very, very little gain, and that's all implying that the number 10 drain roads is probably the quickest and the easiest and the possibly even the best value, cheapest way to go through, and that was pretty much unanimous on everybody in that group. So it'll be interesting what happens in the consultation, because I know myself in the Mandeville side, some people want the Mandeville upgrade because if it sounds an upgrade, you're going to get rid of some water. But there's some of that group in the Mandeville grade that also thinks, well, we don't want some of our swales bigger, because when there's waters in there, it could create problems for children drowning and problems like that happening. And so there's still, I think, there's a lot of debate coming up on that. I'm just about 1.5 minutes, so
Question on that. I've had a ring from a couple of members who I'm not prepared to say who they are, questioning the fact that it was a very biased trip. It was being, not by staff, by councillors, tried to be pushed into certain ways and asked leading questions. A couple of members from the drainage rang me the other day. Is that something that you saw?
I think it actually was biased, yes, because it's been continuous on the drainage groups that of what's been happening there, and a lot of the drainage group people are very concerned, particularly the HOCA ones, that all this extra water that's going to be accumulated on this Mandeville stage 1 upgrade is actually going to hit the HOCA stream and Kaiapoi quicker than what it used to be before. So yes, there is a lot of bias on that, including from myself as well, because I think it is wrong that stage 1, and there are some very prominent questions needs to be answered on the situation with it. So yes, I think quite a lot of it has been a wee bit biased, and it is very, very biased on particularly the staff side of.
Well, I think I'll stop at that point, because we're looking at a portfolio update.
Yeah.
We're not entering into a debate.
No, I was just answering the question from the.
Could I put point of order, I think?
Point of order?
Yeah, well, a point of order. I think that's a pejorative statement on staff, and I would like to speak to that when I have the opportunity, please. I mean, it is an accurate and pejorative.
I'm not going to have any further discussion on the topic, Councillor Fulton. I hear what you're raising, and I think I've addressed that by calling that discussion to an end. I'd like to think we can just keep on the topic. There was a field trip. Sounds like there were diverging views as a result of that. Presumably staff were on the field trip and will have heard whatever feedback was given. So I think if we can just move on and stick to what's been happening.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, point of order again. When do we get to address that? Because that's not what I've heard from other people. So we've got one view that's been put across, and that is not the view that I've heard from the people that have rung me. So when do we get to hear that? And I accept that it's not now. I accept that, but I would like some time put aside, because that is not the view that I've had expressed to me. And what's more, the criticism of our staff is just not fair, and I won't accept it.
I'm not taking that as criticism of the staff.
Well,
Charlie, are you able to say when this topic can be addressed? Now is not the time.
Yes, so it was a good meeting that we had with the Ōhau Command Board meeting last week. So yeah, robust discussion. So you recall there was a report that went to council setting up the process to engage with the community regarding the stage 1 works. So that will be undertaken in the new year, and we'll be bringing a report back to council in May, and that will be summarising all of the feedback that we have from the community, including the Ōhau Command Board Drainage Advisory Group, for council to make a decision.
Could I please say, I thought that we had recommended unanimously 9-1 on proceeding positively with stage 1, and we passed that, and then I understand that it was ambushed on the next day by one of our councillors, and I'm really upset about that.
I'll stop there because I'm not familiar with the direction you're heading in.
Well,
certainly council did agree to go out for consultation on stage 1.
Exactly, and it was ambushed on the next day.
Well, I'm not going there because I don't know about that. But I would like that when the consultation occurs, it'll be coming back to council to make a decision.
Well, I just hope that our councillors will give a fair description of what the whole of the council talked about and agreed on.
Well, I'm sure it will be debated at that time, but does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with when it's done, it's as long as we are going to.
Yeah. Well, I'll just come back now that this is a portfolio update. So is there anything else to add to your update, Councillor Williams?
I can update that the Ashley water main on the footpath is going quite well. Footpath's getting replaced in places, and I see they've actually stopped it where that brand new footpath has been put there, so I see there's a bit of pipe sticking out of the ground here, so I don't know how far whether it's going to go protruding into that new footpath we've done. I know we've had a wee bit of an update, everybody, and they said it's going to come down by Lovers Lane, all the writing was on there, but the rest of the footpath from there has got no writing, so I don't know whether there's already melting under that path after that stage or not.
Sorry, I thought an update had come back through from government, but I can just double check if it has. I know staff definitely prepared one, and that did not, it was a very small area just at Lovers Lane where the new path, I think it was only a few square metres, would need to be relayed. But that it didn't affect the remaining footpaths.
So does that mean there must be a pipe already under the ground from the rest of that there to the Lovers Lane?
Yes, I believe that there is, and I know that I think there's 2 sections of Ashley Street to do this year, but there's quite a big gap between the 2. So one is up near the northern end, and the other is a section that's underway at the moment. So there was nothing in between, as my understanding.
That's really brilliant that it has been thought to put that pipe in under that ground, so that's brilliant.
Yeah, we certainly try our very best to coordinate wherever we can. We generally get it right, but on occasions, unfortunately, we do get it wrong. So that has happened before, but we do try our best not to do that.
And that's it for me, for me 2 minutes.
Right, thank you. That was a long term. Right, I think we had a few questions during the course of that, so I won't ask for further questions, but if we could move on to Councillor Bryan, solid waste.
Right, recycling bin audits, Mr Chair. These have been ongoing for the last few months, and this is the last week for the audit team. Educated, given out gold stickers to quite a few bins, in addition to a lot of education. But we're still finding a good number of bins with unacceptable items in them, from toilet seats and bags, nappies, etc. However, we do seem to be making headway. Educate have also done some sort way audits on a number of school recycling bins with variable results. Some have shown improvement, some not so much, and a few are over the 10% contamination upper limit. Detailed reports of the audits are sent to all audited schools, and this has resulted in new bookings for the contractor to go and talk to caretakers, admin and teaching staff in 2025. Audits will begin again January post-Christmas. Impacts of the strong winds on Sunday night. Some of the smaller poplars on the northern boundary of Southbrook Transfer Station were blown down, damaging the fence and taking the guttering off the waste oil shed. Contractors going on site to remove the trees and undertake repairs. There was no observed damage at Oxford Transfer Station after the winds, but our contractor will need to do a clean-up of the unsecured recycling materials that were scattered around the site. We've had a larger porta-con installed at the back of the kiosk for site and collection staff to have their breaks in, and for toolbox and meters. This is a temporary arrangement until the upgrades have been completed, and the plan is to sell it at the end once construction has been completed. My niece has asked Waste Management to do extra collections from the Cusp Rural Recycling Facility to ensure locals don't have any issues with the skips being too full over the holiday period. So that was sent. You'll have a copy of that, I'm sure. That's from Kitty, but some extra toilets from me. As I mentioned last week, Mr. Chair, about the levy. I do have serious concerns that the government's going to get their fingers in that pie. I've asked the Mayor next time he has to catch up with Matt Ducey if he can include me for 5 minutes so I can find out what exactly the government's proposal is with regard to that levy. The impacts could be quite severe. We've got a very successful, surprisingly successful scheme at the Cusp. It costs money, and if you're going to take away the levy, we're going to have to take away other things. So that's a worry. I went to the Transwaste AGM. There was no significant changes. They're looking at reducing the size of the board, which is something they looked at years ago when I was there. So at this stage, potentially there will be an independent chairperson on running Transwaste at that chair level. So it'll be an appointment made by the partners. But I think that's quite a positive change. And as Jamie Goff, he assured me there'll be nothing too radical, and he's lived up to his word. Just a little bit of controversy. Most of you know that I'm technology challenged, so I haven't seen it, but no intentions of looking at it. But apparently we do have a disgruntled transfer station user who's posted on social media being critical of staff in that they didn't help him unload his trailer. Our staff cannot help you unload your trailer. It's OSH. They cannot do that because if they slip and fall, unfortunately, it's us who's in the trouble. But anyway, apparently it's on social media for those of you who might know how to look at it, find it, read it, whatever. But thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Right, thanks, Councillor Bryan. Do I take it that Gil Cox is retired?
We had a dinner that night after the AGM. Yes, he's pulled the dinner.
And has he been replaced?
Well, at this moment, the AGM only has just changed the rules. So there's a bit of a hiatus in there at the moment, and Gil's going to help us through that period.
Right, well, I'd like to acknowledge his service over the years on that committee. I think, from what I've observed, he's been excellent value.
Well, it'd be something good if Dan can make a mention of it at our January, February council meeting, I think.
Well, perhaps that could be noted in the minutes. You have a question, Councillor Williams?
Yeah. About 12 months ago, there was brought up at the council meeting that staff were going to investigate going onto the property owner on the south side of the transfer station to trim those populars. Is that not being done? Do you know? Have they been turned down or?
I don't know. If you want to address your question, I'll make sure you get a reply. But I've used it a fair bit of late when we moved out of Ripton. I haven't noticed any particular trimming. The trees I'm referring to actually are on the other side.
Oh, on the other side, so not those ones.
Right, thank you. Sorry, a question from Councillor Keyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for your report. Can you give us an update in terms of, since we've started the auditing of recycling bins, has it resulted in actually less contamination?
I believe the answer to that is yes, but unfortunately it's still there. So it's a matter of continuing. But again, with council, I can give you more detailed information and get it back to you.
Interesting. Thank you.
Well,
Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the report, Robbie. You just talked about the health and safety provisions, but actually I've got a family member who's now we're taking sort of account of his mobility and things, and I know how reluctant he is to go along to sites where potentially might sort of trip or fall or have to lift things. Custard Centre is a great one where you have to lift stuff up into a bin. Do we have a mobility access policy for these for people? Not just because it's rough surfaces, but we're actually asking people to physically lug stuff around and put it in the bins, and you know, trip hazards and the whole lot, isn't it?
I think it would be a very good thing to raise at our next sort of hazardous waste meeting, but I certainly don't want staff doing it.
No, but I understand this. My eyes have been open to you know, the hazards are very real, and they discourage people from recycling because I know in my case I do it because this person can't do it now. So,
yeah,
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes portfolio updates. I have no questions under standing orders nor urgent general business. So we'll move on to item 9, and I'll move the matters in item 9, 9.1 to 9.5 that we move into public excluded for the reasons given under section 9. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ward. Thank you.